Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Run Through the Jungle. I'm your boy Justin Lacey. Joining me is Tim Lyons, my other co-host here. How you doing, Tim?
What's up, buddy? I'm doing good. It's a Wednesday. We're halfway there. It's a hump day. Friday can't come close, or can't come quick enough.
Yeah, and quite frankly, too, it's even worse than now that the season's over for the Bengals. Now the
Yeah.
playoffs is here. Everybody's amped up. Everybody's talking about, big time playoff wins or losses, whatever. And it
hmm
just it just reminds me that, man, this time of year sucks if your
It
team
does.
is not in the playoffs when they should have been there. For me,
Yeah.
the playoffs has always been one of my favorite time of the year just because things get crazy. Like different type of upsets happen. Wild thing. This is where legends typically are made during playoff season. You know what I mean? And you got the Notre Dame shirt. So it ain't even like just talking about the NFL playoffs, even though that's what I like the most. But you got the
Right.
college football playoffs, man. As you just mentioned, what you showing you with your little shirt and whatnot, bro. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Ohio State Buckeyes, man, meeting in the college football championship game. How you feel about that?
You know, I grew up in Ohio. I grew up in Lima, Ohio. Everybody in my whole household's they're Ohio State Buckeyes fans. I was the only
Okay.
Notre Dame fan. Well, my mom kind of liked Notre Dame too. Um, But I was a Notre Dame fan. I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. My everybody in my house is pretty much Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So, but with this matchup, for me, I'm excited because we're getting that Notre Dame Ohio State matchup that we never really got to see. Back in the day. Well, Notre Dame hasn't won
Mhm.
a national championship since 1988, and our coach was Lou Holtz. I know. All these Ohio State fans are telling Lou Holtz to shut up, and they won't forget what he said the last time we played them last year. It was a good game. We got beat last year 17-14. Um, but this is not these are two different teams, two different teams, two different squads. Coaching's a
Mhm.
little bit differently. Marcus Freeman's a hell of a coach. I think he's brought to that tradition back to Notre Dame. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm hoping they win. Of course, as a fan, I hope they win. There's it's gonna be a battle. I think like I said before, and I don't know if anybody ever pays attention to me, but I think it's gonna be a 3-point game. Whoever wins the game, I'm not gonna say. I'm hoping Notre Dame is because I'll be biased because I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I hope Notre Dame does win. But I think whoever wins it's going to be by 3 points. I know the spread was at like 9.5 at one point, 8.5. So who knows? We'll see. But I'm
I
excited.
think Ohio I think Ohio State is favored by I think like 10 or something in this game, but it can be a game where I can see exactly what you're saying. That it can go really close, and quite frankly, Notre Dame just has a fighting chance, just like the Fighting Irish in their name. I find myself rooting a little bit more for Notre Dame than I originally realized, and it's because of Marcus Freeman. He used to be the
Yeah.
defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bearcats under our old guy Luke Fickle, who if people don't understand UC's history with Luke Fickle in most recent memory, just like the Bengals went to the Super Bowl in 2021, Luke Fickle helped lead the charge of the first group of 5 team to make the college football playoffs, and that was
Yeah.
during the 4 teams slate at that point. So I root for guys like Marcus Freeman to get a shot, and quite frankly, I want him to win. I wanted him to keep winning, and he has that team playing such as a connected unit, and quite frankly,
Yeah.
this actually be a nice little segue as we get into some Bengals news and notes here. They also got Al Golden, a former Bengals linebackers coach who's made his way and really championed the success on that defensive side of for Notre Dame too. And I'm just
Yep.
really excited to see it happen and unfold, man. It's just you can't go wrong either way supporting either one of these franchises. I'm not really a big full-time avid college football watcher. I'll be honest.
Right. Right.
Usually when I start watching and breaking down some college tape, it's only just to be looking at the top prospects going into the draft. I'm not going into the college football season talking about I want to root for this team and this team. These are the teams that I follow throughout the year
Right.
or my life and whatnot. I know you're a little bit different than me, but and I don't know why I'm like that. Probably because I'm been born and raised in Cincinnati. I get it. Ohio State's usually kind of like dominated the whole entire state. But dude, I'm from
Right.
Cincinnati, man. We got our own UC program here, our college football program. I root for them more than I root for Ohio State. But
Yeah. Which is
at the end of the
understandable.
day, man, I've always been like a pro football guy, but lately I just been more inclined to watch a little bit more college football, more specifically Notre Dame, just because I know Ohio State's going to sport out great players. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Notre Dame the same way too, but it's just something's different than me. And I like I said, I think that the energy that Marcus Freeman has implored, it makes it so much easier to root for. And I think that's probably where I'm sort of leaning towards as well too. See how the game goes, man. I'm excited for it. Like I said, it's not just NFL playoffs, college football playoffs. Man, it's been an entertaining wild ride. It's one of those things where it's like this is why they wanted to expand the whole realm and then get a lot of teams involved. And,
Right, right. There,
stay-
there, there'd be no
go ahead.
way that a seventh seed and an eight seed would be playing each other for the national championship if they didn't
Mhm.
do this bracket this way.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a
yeah,
fan. I'm a fan of this format, and I hope they keep it. You know what I mean? We'll see how the years progress and go forward. But at the end of the day, man, I root for positive change, and I think that this is one of those things where I root for that. You know, and I know a lot of your old school fans are going to talk about like, oh man, see, Alabama would have beaten this team. Well, they didn't win enough games during the regular season, so gone somewhere with that. Same thing with Michigan. I know our
right,
boy Brandon Harry, who's not joining us today again for his own personal reasons, but he's a Michigan guy. But his Michigan team didn't win enough games this year. So with that being
right.
said, let some new blood that has earned their way into the playoffs and let them fight it out. And if they get
Yeah,
obliterated round one, so what? That's a learning experience for that program. So
yep.
I'm rooting for this. I'm rooting for this. I'm rooting for a great matchup. I think that's ultimately what I'm going to be here to say with that. But on to some Bengals news. Really, there's really not much to talk about, Tim. Only thing I really just need to share with you is we're still looking. We're still finding out who our defensive coordinator is and fill out the rest of the backlog of the coaching staff. But I guess I'm remiss if I ask you, who do you feel like, from based off of everything that you've heard, who do you feel like would be the best candidate that will represent the defensive coordinator for the Bengals?
I think bring in Al Golden from Notre Dame. Bring him back to Cincinnati. He was a linebacker coach back in the day. So he's got some family, here in the Bengals organization. What he's done with this program as a defensive coordinator, it's done. And I know I'm being biased because I'm a Notre Dame fan, but he's a hell of a defensive coordinator. Look what he's done. Yeah, I know
Mhm.
everybody's going to say, "Oh, well, they lost to Northern Illinois." Come on, that was 12 weeks ago. They were punching people in the face every week after that. So I don't even want to hear that bullshit. But I would like to see Al Golden or I don't know. I don't even know after that. After that, I'm just like, whatever, it is what it is. I know there's all these rumors going on about so and so and so and so. But until we actually see these interviews happen and them actually put these coaches in consideration for our DC, we don't know. We're waiting just like everybody else.
Yeah, and quite frankly, and I think it's imperative to discuss that. Look, the Bengals want to do their full due diligence. They understand that this is a very important hire,
Yeah.
especially if you're Zach Taylor. You got to get this one right because if
Hmm.
this one doesn't go right, dude, you're probably on the way out after next year. So with that being said, don't rush the decision if it's not meant to be rushed. You know what I mean? So I think that the Bengals are trying to do their due diligence. Maybe that the guys that they're looking at are probably still in the playoffs right now, and when their season's over, they will like to welcome and bring them in on board for an interview. And I think
Yeah.
one of them does include Al Golden, who's in college right now. Well, not he's in college, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. He's
But
in
I
the
think
playoffs right now.
Al Golden would be a fantastic candidate, and I think that if he were to be selected for the defensive coordinator job, I think that he'll do work wonders just because he was here in 2020 and 2021 as a linebackers coach. I think that his production from that position group that you saw, we've seen some of the best that's ever performed. You think of Logan Wilson as a rookie and then going into a second year. You saw Jermaine Pratt in his third
Yeah.
year. They had the infamous interception that got the Bengals their first playoff win. Now, I don't really like what Jermaine Pratt is doing nowadays, but
Yeah.
4 years ago, he was one of the better linebackers in the league that nobody was really talking about. So I think that how Golden has evolved his approach going into the collegiate level. I think that he was able to understand that he can do so much more, and his experiences being in the NFL. I think that it will be a great addition for the Bengals and his familiarity within the organization too. Well, while I do want I think that he fits the right mold of someone that you're somewhat familiar with, but you appreciate his evolution, and he can bring that with him as he comes back to Cincinnati But ultimately, man, I think that the Bengals just need to continue doing their due diligence. We already heard enough names like the Patrick Grahams, the DeMarcus Covingtons of the world and stuff like that. Look, still keep doing your interviews, but something tells me, man, they already pretty much got a selection in hand that they just got to wait to officially sign that person to sign on the dotted line when their season is allegedly done. So,
Right.
not really too much to embark upon that or to expand upon that, just because, as what you said, we're in the dark. You're hearing too many rumors right now, and I'm not about trying to spread gossip and rumors on this show like that for real. We
No.
can entertain a little bit, but personally, I'm just going to leave that alone.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do, we going to have fun on this show because again, it's the playoffs. We had
Yeah.
fun last week making our picks and kind of dissecting each game. So what we're going to do is get into some wild card review, to review our picks. I made some picks. You made some picks. Got
Yeah.
some right. Got some wrong.
Yes, I'm wrong.
Sadly, the wild card round is literally a wild card. It's in its name. And so let's see. Let's just go right into it, man. Because I'm gonna go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off.
Mhm.
I'm gonna start with this game. Now, usually I'll go in order from the game that was played all the way on down, but I need to go and address this game first because I put it out there after it was played that this was the stupidest pick that I ever made. I had no business picking this team to win this game because I already knew that all signs pointed to this team that they were going to dominate and win. And that was the Baltimore Ravens going against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I forgot. I forgot you picked the Steelers to win. Oh, I forgot about that.
Man, you know what? I'm going to put a whole big egg on my face for that one just because, man, first of all, coming from the place of understanding of why I made the decision to go with Pittsburgh to upset Baltimore, and I'll be perfectly honest, I found myself rooting for the Steelers in this game just because of pure jealousy that I don't want to see the Ravens advance. And if Lamar Jackson get a Super Bowl, that's going to make me jealous as a Joe Burrow homer. It's
Yeah.
when you got the top guy in the NFL, like one of those top guys, Patrick Mahomes. We all can agree that the top four quarterbacks in this league, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, those are the top four guys, okay? And you have that innate competitive spirit within your fan base over your top guy. You always want to find every little nook and cranny obstacle that you can possibly jab at the other person. For Lamar Jackson, it was playoff performances and playoff wins. And when he didn't have his playoff performances numbers up there like that, that was something that Bengals fans can kind of always throw back in Ravens fans' face. Like, well, yeah, even though your quarterback has a couple of MVPs, the Bengals have the playoff success. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was picking this game more so out of spite and out of jealousy when I had no business doing that. And now that the game was played, I realized one thing. Baltimore's become the new Pittsburgh for me, and I hate that. And I'm not going to allow myself to get into that mode because the reality is the Baltimore Ravens are indeed a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
And I never should have picked the Steelers just because I was embedded with the notion that they were the team that gave Baltimore the most fits. They knew how to game plan against Lamar Jackson, but Tim, bro, this Steelers team is bad. They were bad.
Yeah.
Like, what? Give me your full alleged thoughts on the game.
So I made the comment the day that we beat the Steelers on week 18 when the Bengals beat the Steelers. I made the comment. I said, congrats on the playoffs. And I was being true about that. But I said, but go out and lose that first week of the playoffs. Go ahead and just go out and lose that wild card game. And I was being sincere about that as well. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers, they look great on paper. But paper don't play on the field.
Mm.
I believe that this upgrade that I ain't gonna call him an upgrade, but this offensive coordinator that they brought in at Arthur Smith was a trash move. Arthur Smith destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. He destroyed that organization. He messed them up. Why would you bring that in? Just because he's a run guy, a run first kind of guy? Okay, that's great. I'm happy for you. What I'll tell you this right now is every game that they won was in the first half of the season where they were playing under 500 teams, and they were trash. They were trash teams. So, of course, they had a good run. Of course, Justin Fields went out there and went 4-2 in the first 6 games because you guys were playing against trash. But other than that, I'm not going to make excuses for him. But other than there's no way in hell that I was going to pick the Steelers to beat the Ravens, even though as much as I hate both of these teams, I have a little bit more hate for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just do. I don't like any of their players. Yeah, TJ Watt's great. Cam Hayward's great. You know, Mika Fitzpatrick's great, but I don't like them. You know, I'm a big Derrick Henry fan. Everybody knows I run the damn ball. I love Derrick Henry. If the Cincinnati Bengals would have gave him a contract to be on our team last year, or this year, I would have been happier than a pig in crap. But we let the Ravens built a juggernaut over there when it comes to the run game. They did. They built a juggernaut. And with the addition of Lamar Jackson, with what he can do on his feet, well, you know, it's something that it's hard to defend against. It really is. It's hard to defend against.
Yeah.
You know, the
sure.
Bengals had 2 great games against the Ravens. We lost.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also because of, you know, piss poor defenses and bad play calling, Lamar Jackson being Lamar Jackson, you know. So, but yeah, I picked the Ravens to win, and I'm glad they did win. I don't know how much further they're going to get into the playoffs, but we'll see. I'll decide when it's time to pick the picks.
Yeah, we'll go over our divisional round picks, and when we preview that round of football. You know, that's going to come in the later half of the show. Our boy Austin Zark's in the chat here. Who day, my brother? How you doing, man? Thanks so much for joining us as always. We appreciate you for always constantly tuning in to the show and also being proactive in the show too, in the comment section too. So, but going back to this game here with Pittsburgh at Baltimore, like I said, I gave my reason and in the beginning is why I picked the Steelers to upset the Ravens. And I thought that was because it was divisional familiarity. But man, I really just should have just looked at what everybody else was thinking. And man, like this Pittsburgh Steelers team was just bad the last 4 weeks of the season. When we played against them, they were at home and they were trying to play some of their best football. And I was thinking, like, man, they probably didn't want to show out very much just because they were getting ready to play in the playoffs and whatnot. And they wanted to put their full arsenal on display. No, they're just not that great. Because when I saw them against the Ravens, they had chances to punch them in the mouth. They just didn't take it. Now you did mention the Ravens had the opportunity to kind of like just dominate. They couldn't stop anybody on the ground. It started off with Lamar running the ball more, and it felt like Lamar was more comfortable with being himself when it came to running the ball instead of trying to prove in the playoff that he's a drop back passer when he ain't got to prove that. Look at his numbers throughout the regular season. He's probably going to get an MVP award because of it. So with that, I think that took a little bit of weight off his shoulders to where he can just sort of play his own game now. And he has a perfect complement with Derrick Henry in the backfield that Pittsburgh in these last 2 matchups, the playoff game and the most recent regular season game with these 2 teams met up in Baltimore, Pittsburgh hasn't shown the willpower to even stop Derrick Henry. Like that's what's the surprising, puzzling part to me is that I thought this Pittsburgh's defense was supposed to be tough. When we played against them twice, I know that Burrow had good numbers on the first one, but like I thought that defense being led by your ever-betrothed TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Mika Fitzpatrick coming up in the box and attack. Bro, those guys could not stop anybody. And I don't even think that, and I think I saw an insane stat line that TJ Watt had well over 100 snaps, not even registered a single tackle in this game. That is embarrassingly bad. Like, I don't know what else to say about this Pittsburgh Steelers team other than Baltimore went in there and handled business. This was the early test in the first round of the playoffs that teams was mentioning that, hey, you still got to be able to overcome Pittsburgh as a kryptonite, because I won't necessarily call them their kryptonite because they did beat them in the second time in the regular season, but like that's still in there. That's still in a team's head. Like when you go against a divisional opponent and the one that has historically had success against you, like the Steelers had against the Ravens, well, more so against Lamar, that's still going to be in the back of the Ravens' head. But he exercised those demons that day, man. And quite frankly, they showed on full display why they should be Super Bowl like I won't call them Super Bowl favors, but they're truly Super Bowl contenders. So just like you, I don't know how far they'll go, but we'll see how when we do the divisional round pick'em spread, because they got an upcoming matchup with the Buffalo Bills. And man, oh man, that's going to be a fun one. I can't wait till we get there to talk about that. But moving on. All right. Now we get back to the order of how we started the original Wildcard preview show. We're
Yeah,
going to get back to that order. Okay. The first game that was on the docket was the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans.
yeah.
So Houston beat the living crap out of the Chargers, bro, and it
Whoa,
wasn't
did
even
they?
close. And quite frankly, I need to get out this disclaimer and this number right now regarding the Chargers faithful, and everybody else. Stop mentioning Justin Herbert as an elite quarterback, please. Please do not mention this guy as an elite quarterback in the NFL anymore until he proves it that he belongs in that discussion. Leave him out of it. Don't try to insert him as a top five, but he's at five. No, he's not. Because as what we saw throughout this playoff run so far, this playoff picture in these matchups, other guys needed to give way more credit. And what people have been doing is crowning Justin Herbert way too soon since he's been drafted. The original prognostication of Justin Herbert when he was going through the scouting combine and draft analysis and stuff, they like his physical tools, but they didn't think that he would be good enough like other guys to be able to lead a franchise. He proved them wrong in that rookie year. He was Mr. Big arm, strong arm, all that, and then it made people just do a so big of an overcorrection that they just glossed over all of the big time mistakes over his first 3 years of his career to make it seem like that's not really Justin Herbert. When the reality is that Justin Herbert is not a clutch guy. He has all of these physical traits and these tools, but they don't encapsulate to elite performances whatsoever. This is the second playoff appearance in a row that we saw him melt down in epic fashion. The first one losing a 27-0 lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars 2 years ago. And yeah, people forget that even happened. And then this most recent time when now you throw him for 4 interceptions, and people want to say, well, look at his yardage total. Look at what we did to throwing the Lad McConkey. Take that one pass out of the Lad McConkey, which that was a great circus catch by him, and to continue on with that catch and run. Take that one pass out of it for a second, and then look at his stat line. Is that a playoff performer right there? No, those numbers look so much on par with Andy Dalton did during his time with the Bengals. It's pathetic. So I needed to get that out there first before I toss it over to you to give me your thoughts on this game. Because I'm done hearing the Justin Herbert conversation. I'm done hearing the Herbert over Burrow conversation. He's not there. He's not one of those guys. He is not a part of the big four. And if you are going to add a fifth person in there, it's not going to be him. Tim, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I picked the Chargers to win. I thought the Chargers defense was going to handle CJ Stroud and the Texans fairly well, and they did do that the first half. The second half came out. The second half Chargers came out, and it was the typical Chargers that we're used to seeing. It was they go out there, they have the lead, or they're playing good, and they crap the bed, and that's exactly what happened. CJ Stroud and Joe Mixon and them guys could do whatever they wanted to do on offense. And I'm happy for CJ Stroud and I'm happy for Mixon. But that Chargers defense was non-existent. And then with the addition of Justin Herbert lost them that game with 4 interceptions. I don't care what anybody says. It's Justin Herbert's fault. They lost that game because of Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is not Joe Burrow. He is not Patrick Mahomes. He is not Lamar Jackson. And he's not Josh Allen. So, like Justin said, get that comparison out of your mouth. Don't even compare it. Just because he had one good year, that's it. The last time he went to the playoffs, he crapped the bed again. So then he came and he crapped the bed again today or on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day, Saturday it was. So, unfortunately, I picked the Chargers to win. Chargers lost. And there goes me going 1-1 as of right now.
Yeah, I went 1-1, and this was a one that I got, and I feel really confident in, just because the media tried like crazy to sell you on this notion that Houston was the flawed team out of all of the division winners, and I understand that, and Houston really didn't impress me so much, but I just knew that the real Chargers was going to stand up, and I think that everybody was selling us on the vision of Jim Harbaugh, and even nowadays, now that the wild card weekend has already happened, what you're hearing on a lot of the national airways is that they're talking about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers more than anything else right now. They're not even mentioning this epic meltdown that the Chargers had, like Justin Herbert had. They're not even mentioning of this. And it's really frustrating because it's like, as we go into next year, we're just going to just pretend like that this game didn't even happen. At least the national media folks are going to pretend like that didn't even happen. And we're still going to be glazing and want to try to insert Herbert into the top 5 category. And that's what's going to frustrate me because I know what I'm watching on film. And what I'm watching on film is not what y'all tell me that I'm supposed to be seeing. But I'll give credit to where credit due for the duration of his career. He is a top 5 caliber talent, but he's not that as of right now. Okay. There are other guys that have performed so much better than he has, including the guy he went against, because I haven't even mentioned his name yet. But there are guys that has performed much notably better than him so far in their early parts of their career. And yeah, we're just going to just forget that just because of all the physical traits that Herbert carries. That's not going to be the case. But you did mention the Houston Texans in their run game and just CJ Stroud. To me, it was all started with CJ Stroud stepping up where he needed to step up. He had an abysmal first half. And then he stepped up, just like D'Amico Ryan said. He stepped up. It was the fumble snap that he rolled out to his right and made the play downfield. That's, I think, that was started the juvenated energy for them because the Chargers defense was playing really good football, like you mentioned. It was
Yeah.
really the offense that lost them that game for real. But it
Mhm.
was more so CJ Stroud. He stepped up a little bit. It allowed him to go on some pretty long sustainable drives. But I can tell you right now, man, Houston, they almost gave that game away too. That's why they wasn't that impressive. Joe Mixon, he did his thing in terms of closing out the game in the fourth quarter, like we've always known Joe Mixon to be.
Yeah.
But for much of that game, man, he was getting bottled up. He also had a
Mhm.
fumble. He also had a personal foul penalty. It was one of those things where it's like Mixon, if they lose this game, Mixon, you're probably the reason why they lost this game in a little bit because yeah, you kind of did some things to put your teams in harm's way, but because the Chargers still charge it up and messed it up their own self, the Chargers was not able to take advantage of it, and you were able to bounce back as the game got late, as the team pulled away. CJ Stroud threw a couple of touchdown passes, and then Joe Mixon ran for one to close it out, and it was rewarding to see. He ended up being their best player stat wise on their field that won them the game and iced the game for them. But I think overall it was a collective effort between him, CJ Stroud, and also Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins
Yeah.
is a guy that he is showing the world that while he is going to be considered one of the best wide receivers, top 10 at least, going into next year, because man, I think he's just that dude. And they're only going to get better as time goes on next year, assuming that they stay healthy with Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and whatnot. I know that they had to deal with a lot of injuries, and their offensive line still can't really protect CJ Stroud like that, especially with the interior side. They got a big battle against Kansas City coming up, but we'll give our thoughts and the predictions on that game as we move forward to divisional round weekend. But I mean, tip the cap, man. I mean, that's the second year in a row CJ Stroud got a playoff W. You know what I mean? It's not easy winning a playoff game. We've known that from our 10 years of being Bengals fans. 5 years in a row, no playoff W.
Right.
So, all right. Okay, let's go ahead and get some. Let's go ahead and get some comments. Let's get some comments. Austin Art once again commenting saying CJ Stroud improved in that game. Yep, exactly. Um, also said that Herbert, he wasn't even trying, lots of mistakes there with them. Look, man, this is not a me doing a full blown prep on Herbert type of brigade here. I'm not trying to lean with the whole. I'm going to shit on Herbert every chance that I get, but I just think that the overvaluing of what he does physical wise has just gone so far on the direction of he's been like people really believe that he was going to be the best ever when he came out and after he had his rookie year. They've been ranking him in the top 3 and the top 5 ever since. And he just hasn't really proven that yet. But I think that he will have plenty of time to get his career in order. You still got to be able to show you can win the division. Albeit, I know you got Mahomes in there, but going into our next game, we do have a guy that we need to talk about because that's a guy that's going to go against Herbert twice a year too, and that's Bo Nix. So our next game that we have up here is Buffalo and the Broncos. Buffalo just steamrolled this guy.
Buffalo beat the hell out of the Bills, and
We
I
said
picked the
that they were going to win.
Broncos. Yeah, I picked the Broncos to upset them. That defense was better, had seen better days, believe it or not.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, the Bills just said, "No, hey Bo, why don't you sit down And once you watch Josh Allen do his thing, and that's what Josh Allen did his thing. I think Bo Nix
Yeah.
had like 144 yards passing, like one touchdown, and was sacked like 2 or 3 times. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but the Bills made the Broncos look like, what are you doing here? What are you sure you should be here? You sure hey, are the Bengals waiting around the corner? What's going on? Because the Broncos didn't look too good. But they're a young team, and I'm gonna give them credit where credit's due. Don't everybody send me hate mail. But the Broncos, they turned around their organization. They dealt with what they had. Because remember, they're still paying old Russ that's over in Pittsburgh playing football for free. So
Yeah.
they had that going on. And they did what they did with the rookies with Bo Nix and some other guys. They got rid of Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's playing for the Bills now.
Browns.
Or the Browns. I'm sorry, the Browns now. So the Broncos, they couldn't. The Bills were the big dogs, and unfortunately, that's gave me another L for the weekend. So that's what 1-2, 1-3 now. I don't remember whatever
1-2.
number of game 1-2 right now.
Yeah, it
So
was
yeah,
1-2. Yeah, just 1-2. I mean, fortunately for me, I picked the Bills to win this game. Look, the Super Wild Card weekend, it was an underwhelming weekend in its entirety. It was only one great game, and we'll go over this one pretty briefly, and so with the next one. But I really want to get to the really one good game that was, and that was obviously the Commanders and the Bucks. But yeah,
yeah,
it's simple with the Bills, man. They just flexed their muscle that they were the better team. A lot like the Ravens over the Steelers, the Bills were obviously the better team. And while you credit Denver for getting to the playoffs, nobody's handing you a trophy for participation trophies just
right.
by making it to the playoffs. Their fans can do that if they want to, but we've been there, done that, and we don't even care about that. That's why this has been so disappointing as a Bengals fan watching these playoff games, because I'm not saying we would have beaten the Buffalo Bills because that was the team we would have played.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we would have beaten them, but it would have given them a hell of a lot of a better game than that. But at the end of the day, we didn't make the playoffs, and that's on us. We should have won enough games as we opened and started the season. You can't make the playoffs when you start 0-3 or 1-4 or go 4 and
Right,
8. You know what I mean?
right.
That's the fault of the Cincinnati Bengals. Not blaming any other teams for their pitfalls. Blame yourselves, and we know this. But it was crazy because how the game started, people were ready to write articles and stories on Bo
Yeah.
Nix because they opened up their drive and then he throws a long bomb touchdown to, I don't even think I think it was Marvin Mims. I can't even remember who it was that caught it. And then they go up 7-0. Then all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
people's energy started changing. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you see what Bo Nix did?" And then you got some people on Bengals Twitter talk about, "Oh, I was so right about Bo Nix." And then this epic meltdown fashion happened. I knew that score wasn't going to hold up. Like that was good. One scripted drive that was great, but Buffalo still knows how to play ball all the rest of these quarters. And
Yep.
and I think that when we did our preview show last week, I think I told you, Tim, that you might see a dogfight in the first half between these two teams. But then as the game gets late, like in the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, Buffalo's is going to pull away. They're going to just
Yeah.
start going on scoring drives and scoring drives. And then it was so crazy that late in the fourth quarter, they're still throwing the ball. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, dude, the game's over. Let it
Right.
go. You won. All right. But yeah, this was pretty simple and easy. And, like I said, I got this one right. But going into our next one, we got Green Bay and Philly. A lot of people are talking about this game too. I mean, I think I picked it. I think we both picked the Eagles to win this game.
Yeah.
And they showed like it. They showed like they were the better team.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the question is coming from, and that's another thing. Jordan Love, he struggled in this game mightily, but
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about that. I'm more worried about even in the win. Did you feel like did you feel like Jalen Hurts did good? I don't think he really looked that impressive to me.
I don't. I To me, he didn't look that impressive to me, but he did what he needed to do to get the game won. I know, didn't AJ Brown catch a touchdown pass, and I don't remember whatever else it was. It was a game that it started off like it was going to be a good game, but then it
Mhm.
just kind of they just whomped, like Austin Arch just said, they just whomped them, in the end. So, you know, it, it was a good. It started off, like I said, it started off good. Jalen Hurts didn't look that good. Maybe he was still, a little trying to come back from that concussion, but the Eagles were the big team, and they proven that that they couldn't be beat. So
Yeah, and Saquon Barkley, he continues to impress me, man.
Yeah.
I want him to get a Super Bowl ring so bad, and the part of the reason why I'm picking the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, even though it might not happen, but it's because I really think that Saquon Barkley he's shown his growth so much. What he went through with the Giants those last few years was just awful for him, and you just knew that he was a talent that was getting buried in the dirt. And I'm so
Mhm.
happy that he went to a team that appreciated and utilizes it compared to the full. He's the best player on their team. I mean, I'm
Right.
sorry, but like, and I like everything about the Eagles defense. Now the Packers put out a great defensive performance too, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of it was just that, man, they were just beat up. The Packers, they got beat up down the stretch in the regular season, and then they just got steamrolled with a lot of bodies just dropping like flies as the game was going on. And the next thing you know, every whistle was blowing every other play, and it's like, oh, gosh, another Packer is hurt. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's the Packers were actually my preseason Super Bowl pick along with the Bengals, and Bengals didn't even make the dance, and then now the Packers are out as a 7th seed. So, I mean, that's why it's so crazy, man. You don't pick Super Bowl champions in August or in September, or I'm sorry,
Right.
in August or in July for that matter. But I think that's the Eagles, in spite of what Jalen Hurts looked. I think that they're still the one team that can really beat anybody at any given moment,
Mm.
and that's even the Detroit Lions. That's even any of the big three remaining in the AFC that's currently in the playoffs right now. I think that the Eagles are the one team that can really beat all of them. They got to have a number of things go right, of course, but I mean, I still tip my cap to the Green Bay Packers for making it that far. And again, in spite of Jordan Love's struggles, just because I don't feel like that all of it was entirely on him. I think that they were just beat up from start to finish, bro. And I
Yeah.
think that
Oh yeah.
it just showed that they were just running out of gas and they couldn't really keep up. And unfortunately, you were on the road in that environment, and nobody's really winning that game. It will take a special quarterback to win that game. I don't even think Tom Brady will even be honest with us. I'm telling you, he would have won that game. So, but moving on to a game that we actually you and I were on opposite sides of this game, but it was such a fun game to watch. Washington, they have
Yeah.
beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, it was a 3-point game, 23-20. But man, what a game, man! Like I picked the Buccaneers to win that game. I was really high on Baker's energy and his aura, and I was just thinking more so along the lines of Jaden Daniels. I think he'll make the game fun, but I think that the moment might get a little bit too big for him. Boy, I was wrong. I was
Right.
wrong, bro. Take it away, Tim, because you
Yeah.
nailed it with this one.
Yeah. I picked the Washington Commanders to win. Um, like I said, the first time the Buccaneers played the Commanders, that was Daniel's very first game. That was Jaden Daniel's very first game. He was brand new rookie in the league, so they got the business handed to them. But Jaden Daniels, he's a different kind of quarterback. He's not really different. He's mobile. He's an improviser. He'll throw the ball or he'll dance around the pocket until he has someone to throw to, or until he takes off. With the ball. Um, I knew that this Commanders team, they got some good, they got some great veterans on that team. They got Scary Terry. Scary Terry's been
Mhm,
a commander for gosh, a long time. And then they
mhm.
got Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wags, he was here in
He's still
Seattle with
cooking.
the Seahawks, and he's probably their best. I'm gonna say their best defender when it comes to mind and what the defense
Yeah.
needs to do and everything else. But
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, but that Commanders team just, you know, Dan Quinn's done a great job with that team. He really has. Dan
Yeah.
Quinn and I forget who the other guy's name is. He used to coach for the Cardinals. I can't remember
Cliff
what his name is.
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury, yeah. They've done a great job. They turned that organization around, and got them their first playoff win since what was it? I
And
don't
I
remember how
I
many.
can't even tell you. I think 18 years or something like that from what I heard or
Yeah,
seen. I don't know.
it's been a
I don't
long
got the
time.
right number. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
very long time. Maybe
it's been a
2005,
long
maybe? I
time.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I just thought that the Commanders were going to, play harder and have the youth on their side to beat the Buccaneers. I know you love the story of Baker Mayfield, and and I like Baker to a certain extent. I like Mike Evans. Mike Evans has always been a great wide receiver. But they struggled getting into, even though they got into the playoffs, they had to win. They had to win those games to
Mhm.
get in the playoffs. It was do or die. They had to go.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think in the long run, I think that stretch for them to make it into the playoffs kind of maybe tired them out a little bit, and the Commanders were just too much for them.
And I thought that even though the Commanders had the season that they had, I thought that the Bucks were still mentally tougher. And just because even though they had stumbled a little bit trying to make sure that they were winning that division, a part of me just felt like that they were always still going to be the better team. I still think that they have the better players. But the main difference maker was Jayden Daniels. And what's so impressive to me about this kid, we saw him in week 3. And I thought that the moment was going to be too big for him coming into Cincinnati on Ring of Honor night, knowing that our backs were against the wall. We were 0-2, and all we need to do was just first play out the gate, man, the Bengals throw a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase, and we thought like, okay, everything's going to be okay. We're just going to just steamroll these guys. But then
Mm-hmm.
he starts playing and he starts balling, and he made us question everything about our defense, and
Yeah.
it ended up getting worse for our defense since then. And quite frankly, and it was always bad prior to that, but like that was the moment where the alarm bells just sound off. Like this Bengals defense is so not good that we let a rookie do this. But the thing is, man, he is such a gifted athlete. I don't even classify him as a rookie anymore because he's really not. When you get to a
Right.
certain stretch in your rookie season, if you've played the whole season, you'll get to a certain stretch where one of two things is going to happen. Either the rookie wall is going to hit you and you're going to start looking like bad compared to what you looked to start the season,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to mature fast enough and you're going to start playing better. He's done the latter. He's ascended and started playing better to the point where going into his second season, you don't even think that a sophomore slump is going to happen because he's already showing you that he can dominate as a sophomore right now going into this playoff run. So that's what's very impressive to me about him is that yes, he has the intangibles. He has the tangibles like the mobility and athlete. He gets compared to Lamar Jackson a lot. I see why,
Yeah.
but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's Jayden Daniels, and he's very unique. And he's very unique in his own way. He's a great passer. He's a great runner. And quite frankly, I think he's just only going to get better from there. And he's one of those guys that you can see ascend to that Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks in our top 4 that we already mentioned. You can see Jayden Daniels insert himself in that conversation if he continues his rise like he's doing right
Yeah.
now. I got nothing but great things to say about Jayden Daniels. He proved me wrong from early on in the season when I thought that he wasn't going to be that good. Our defense was just that bad. That's what I said. Totally was wrong about him. He sustained his high level play. He's playing well against teams that he's beating that he should have no business being. The Washington Commanders had no business winning this game. They really didn't. But man,
Right.
you heard it on the TV. Those Commander fans were loud. They were loud at the opposing team stadium, and that was supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be a home playoff game for the Buccaneers. But man, golly, man, I was very happy to see the Commanders pull it off. Like you said about Dan Quinn, he's a heck of a coach, man.
He
His
is.
first stint as the head coach with the Falcons, people forget he was the one that coached that Falcons to that 2016 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, all he gets remembered is the 28-3 loss.
Right.
But he was still a great coach. He was
He
a great
was.
defensive coordinator. He coached the Legion of Boom defense. He coached the
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Cowboys defense just last year. And all of a sudden, man, everybody's been writing him off as he's not going to work as a head coach when he was hired. And he has been great. We got our boy Chase Younts in the chat as well, too. What's going on, my brother, man? Glad that you got a chance to join us here. We're just doing some wild card weekend review. And then before we go into our preview of the divisional round, but I don't really have much else to say about this game. We're both on the same side here. I hated
Yeah.
it was literally a coin flip of why I picked the Bucks over the Commanders, but as this game came to a close, I was like, man, I ain't even mad because I'm really impressed with this kid is doing. So tip of the
Right.
cap, man, Jayden Daniels, man. Washington, the drought is over. Okay, you got your
Yeah.
guy. All right. Okay. We had another snoozer, and I'm not going to be too quick with this. I'm not going to be too long winded with this one here. Vikings at the Rams. That was a dud of a game. I'll just start by admitting, and then I'll let you give your text before we go to the break because I know we're 45 minutes into the show. We haven't even taken a break yet. But man, I was wrong about the Rams. I said that I wasn't sold on them, and in a weird way, I'm kind of still not ish. I think a lot of people are still are way too high knowing that they pulled off this win. But that defense for the Rams is for real. It is for real. They made Sam Darnold look like he was seeing ghosts again. And now everybody's criticizing Sam Darnold that he's not going to probably get a good contract going into this offseason. Now everybody's questioning, what did the Vikings do with Sam Darnold now because of how he looked against the Rams? Uh, Sean McVay is one hell of a coach. I didn't think they were going to
Yeah.
rebuild that team this quick. They started off the season like what 1-6 or 2-6 or whatever, and now to win the division. Even though we both agreed from last week that was the 49ers division to lose, but the
Yeah.
Rams took advantage of it and then they won a playoff game. And that's was symbolic of what the Sean McVay culture is like. And Matthew Stafford, if you are going to insert a fifth quarterback in a top 5 quarterback ranking, give me Stafford at 5. I was not always high on Matthew Stafford during his career, but man, he has shown that he can win big games in big moments, even as a
Yeah.
veteran he is. Now, he's not as more talented than the big four that we know, but Matthew Stafford is a guy that I can clearly see that, man, if you need a game-winning drive, he can be a guy that you can handpick and select. So
Yeah.
give me your thoughts on them.
The Rams disappointed me by winning this game because I picked the Vikings to win. So just let you know, I ended up 3-3.
We both did.
Justin went 3-3. So, but I'm happy for the Rams, and I'm hoping that Sean McVay and the defensive coordinator are sending flowers to Dan Campbell and the Detroit
Yeah.
Lions to give them the game plan of how to deal with Sam Darnold and the Vikings the next week, because that game plan that the Rams came up with just halted their butts. I was just like, what the hell's going on? I was like, what game am I watching here? I was like, did they get that score wrong? Because I was expecting the Vikings just to come in there and throttle them. Unfortunately, I love Brian Flores because I thought, that was my hype of the reason why I picked the Vikings to win.
Yeah.
Was because Flores and what that Vikings team has done. But I should have remembered what the Detroit Lions did to them the week before. So, I think what happened to the Rams, and I'm not going to say the Rams are any slouches. I'm not saying that, because they do have Matt Stafford, they have Puka Nacua, they got Cooper Kupp. They have a great offense. Their defense looked like, I'm going to say it, I know it's too early to say it, but they looked like the Super Bowl champ defense, believe it or not. That defense looked stellar.
They were incredible.
Yeah.
And
So
you would think that Aaron Donald would have came out of retirement to help him out with that pass rush.
Right.
Dog, they didn't need it.
I was looking for number 99 on the field, but I didn't see him. He wasn't on the field nowhere. But they were playing like past Super Bowl champ Rams defense. And, they proved me wrong. That they gave me my L. And, I wish them luck, going on to the next round.
Yeah, man, they gave me my L too, because just like you, I picked the Vikings in this game in a pick 'em, and that was because people were too low on the Vikings, I thought, and I was like, didn't they just win 14 games? And now all of a sudden, now that they lost this game, this wild card game, people are still all of a sudden down on the Vikings that what they did during the regular season doesn't matter. When it's like, okay, Kevin O'Connell should still be listed, you still be named Coach of the Year still. I think that Sam Darnold should find a great spot on a team if it's not going to be re-signing with the Vikings. He led them to a 14-3 record. Come on now, a 14-3 season is the number 1 seed in the best record in all of football in many seasons. It just happened to be that he shared the same division as the Detroit Lions, and that ultimately led him to getting the number 5 seed. But at the end of the day, man, I still think that there are great things on the horizon for the Vikings team. We'll see how the J.J. McCarthy era unfolds with them. But if you're Sam Darnold and you're hanging your head down low because all the national media people are talking about you and how much you stink in your first playoff outing, a lot like they're saying about the Steelers and how Mike Tomlin should move on, the Steelers should move on from Mike Tomlin and stuff. Dude, those are the wrong narratives to be paying attention to if you ask me personally. I think that the Vikings don't have nothing to work hang their heads down low about. They had a one hell of a season. Nobody really picked them to be a Super Bowl representee to begin with anyway. You overachieved when you went 10 wins, okay?
Yeah.
To get to 14 wins, and you should have won a division in some respects. Dude, you got nothing to hang your head down low on. But yeah, tip of the cap to the LA Rams. That defense was just ferocious. We'll see how they carry on through the rest of the playoffs because they got a tough matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles. But what we're going to do is that at the 50-minute mark, we're going to take a quick little break here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to preview the divisional round of the playoffs, and then we'll wrap up the show. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. Please, I forgot to mention this to open the show. Please be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review. Give us that notification, ding that notification bell so that way you know when we're going live here. And we'll be right back in a brief moment. All right, all right. Thank you so much for bearing with us through a very long start to the show that's almost about to be over. I love it. All right. We're going to be previewing the divisional round here because this is where the real fun of the playoff starts, man. The wild card weekend, it was cool. It's playoff football. The energies are heightened, but you got to weed out those teams that don't belong. And none of the games
Yeah.
outside of Washington and Tampa Bay were convincing good enough games that told you anything about the team. Like the teams that lost more, except for the Vikings, all the other teams that lost that weekend were pretty much the weak links of the playoffs. Okay, I like the Green Bay Packers, but given what we've already said about their run leading into the postseason, it wasn't going to last. You just kind of can see that happen. But in order to get this started, we're going to play a little bit of music as we kind of start into the divisional round review here. Kind of, kind of get a little started here. All right.
Have to get
Okay,
the
Tim.
cigar out.
Can fire up a cigar on just like right now. That'll be. I only fire up a cigar when the Bengals do a big time win, especially in the playoffs. That's when I fire
Amen.
up a cigar. I
Amen.
haven't had to fire up a cigar in 2 years. It's been frustrating. But anyways, man, this is our review of the divisional round. We're going to start off with our first game here on the docket. The Texans visit the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the number one seeded Chiefs. They hadn't played a game since Christmas Day, at least their starters. Okay.
Right.
They're going to be coming in here with a lot of rest. Sure, quick thoughts here. What are your thoughts on this game, and who are you predicting to win?
Well, the Chiefs right now are shown as 8.5 favorites.
Mm-hmm.
With an over and under of 41.5. So the over of 41.5 points.
Okay.
The Chiefs, they've had a lucky season. I'm gonna say I don't care what anybody says. They had a lucky season. They've had refs on their sides. They've had stuff go their way. I'm actually gonna do this, and y'all might think I'm crazy, but I think the Texans are gonna hand them their first L of the playoffs, and they're going to send them home. Why? Well, let's see here. Mahomes ain't having the best season of his life. He ain't even, his stats ain't close to Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. His stats ain't even close. That offense, only thing that's keeping them in games are refs and their defense. Unfortunately, I think that ends because they've been off since the 25th of December. Their first stringers haven't played a game. Their first and second string haven't played a game since the 25th of December. It is now January 15th. And by the time this game gets played, it's going to be a little bit later. So I think the Texans are going to have a slight advantage because they played last week. I'm going to say, and call me crazy, here it is right now. Texans beat the Chiefs.
Okay.
Point blank.
You know what? Anytime that anybody predicts the Chiefs to lose, it's music to my ears just because of, again, the jealous rivalry nature as being a Bengals fan, a Joe Burrow fan, and I get all that. But look, I'm not as bold as you to pick the Texans over the Chiefs because here's the thing that gives me pause when I talk about the Texans, man. They haven't really shown a lot for me either. I understand the Chiefs are coming in here. They're going to be rusted a little bit, but you still got Mahomes, you got Kelsey, you got Travis Kelsey twice, and you got Chris Jones. Those two are the leaders of the team. They know how to turn it on when the playoffs start. They understand that this is where the three-peat starts, and they need to understand that going into this game, you're at home. I just don't think that the Texans are one of the big dogs enough to be able to prove that they can pull off this upset. It'll be a lot like when the Jacksonville Jaguars went on the road to Kansas City a couple of years ago after their big playoff win over the Chargers. There was a number of people that actually, believe it or not, thought that the Jags could pull off the win. I didn't see it. And when Mahomes hurt his ankle, people were like, oh, the Jags had their opportunity. Again, it's one of those things where it's like they're just not mature enough in this spot to take advantage. But I will say this. If the Texans do pull off the upset, I ain't got no Texans gear or anything like that, but man, I will put in like somewhere on the show all hail Texans, or I don't know. I'll figure. But man, that will be one crazy. That will be one of the bigger upsets that we of like the playoff
Yeah.
upsets of all time. You know, but yeah, no, I think it will be a better game than an 8.5 point spread that it was given. I think it will be a little bit of a better game than that. I'm hoping the Texans make it a better game because when these two teams met up before, the week before the Christmas game that was played, man, you thought that they had a chance, but they just didn't. And it was because of the Tank Dell injury, more so to speak, that kind of like demoralized their efforts a bit. But if anybody can pull it off, I think CJ Stroud could. You know, I think he's the right opponent for them. I give them more of a puncher's chance to do it than the Chargers that they just beat, or the Steelers that lost, or the Broncos that lost. I give the Texans more of a chance to pull off this round two upset. But again, I think that we're going to come away from this weekend still having to admit that once again, it's going to be the Arrowhead Invitational at the AFC Championship game. And it's kind of getting annoying at this point, but it is what it is, man. All right. The next game up on the docket here on that Saturday evening, another fun one, man. We've given a lot of glowing praise about Jayden Daniels, but the Commanders are going to be on the road playing host to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Detroit is 9.5 point favorites. They are big home spreads here, and rightfully so. I think this game is going to be one of those higher scoring shootout games just because Detroit's defense is still a little banged up. Okay. I think that the Washington Commanders will make it fun and entertaining for a while. Then I think that the machine that is the Detroit Lions offense and Ben Johnson, they're just going to get uber creative and then pull away as the fourth quarter begins and ends. I think we might see like a 45-31 score. I'm going that deep. I think that game gets that entertaining for real. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Wow. Lions are favored by 9.5 points. The over/under is 55.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's, so you're looking at like, possibly 28, say 28-24 game, maybe. I don't know. Yes, Detroit Lions. I'm going to root for the Detroit. And unfortunately, I'm going to say this is where the Commanders' playoff run ends with the Detroit Lions. I think Dan Campbell and Ben, what's his nuts? I can't remember his name. Is Aaron Glenn. I think
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson, yeah, and Aaron Glenn. I think those three coaches in this team is just, they're at a different level right now. I don't care what anybody says. They're at a different level. I think they're going to keep this continuous roll going. And unfortunately, Austin, I'm going to say the Detroit Lions are going to play in the Super Bowl. But I don't think the Commanders have the weapons to really truly stop Detroit on what they're doing. Because if Jahmyr Gibbs gets going, if that run game gets going, whoo, buddy, you better watch out.
And they do got David Montgomery coming back too.
Yeah, if Jared Goff gets going with them, passing those passes to Ahmad St. Brown, woo, we've seen what Jared Goff can do. He can go on a 15 for 15 tear and just carve you up. Yeah. So, unfortunately for the Commanders, sorry, but this is where your playoff hopes end, and it's Detroit versus everybody.
Yeah, again, I guess I should have insinuated that I'm picking the Lions in this game too. Look, I think that the Commanders have been a great story. If they were to win this game, will it shock me? No, it would not shock me. But I think that their roster is not as deep as what the Lions' output is. And I think that as everything that you mentioned offensively, I don't think that the Commanders have enough skill sets to be able to pull off this win, but they do have enough skill sets to be able to make it entertaining for a while before the Lions be like, all right, enough of this game. Let's just show that we gotta go to the NFC Championship game. We got a championship game to prepare for in Detroit, and they still want their role to come through there. But I don't really have too much to add to this game. I think that we're both in it with the Lions here on this one. The only game so far that we're splitting is Houston and Kansas City so far, but it is what it is. This is why the games these
crazy
because we made an upset has to happen in this round. It's not always the most popular team, but generally speaking, that usually happens in the AFC, not so much the NFC. usually the NFC is just if you're the first or second best team in the conference, respectively, you're the top two teams that's going to meet in the NFC Championship. So
Mhm.
I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm going to bet along with the trend there. Moving on to the LA Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. This could be an upset that nobody is really thinking about, but I'm not willing to bet my money against the Eagles here in this spot because this is still a hectic team. As much glowing praise as I've given the Rams defense, the Eagles have enough within their arsenal that they can really manufacture ways around it. All they got to do is run the ball effectively, and they have that within Saquon Barkley. Even Kenneth, what's his name? I can't even remember their backup. Kenneth Gainwell, I believe his name is that. And then Jalen Hurts, he's a great running quarterback as well too. And they still have one of the best O lines in football. Give me the Eagles in this one. It's sitting at a 6.5 point spread. What are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, yeah, I agree with you. I think this is where the Rams, playoff trip ends right here. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are just going to be too much for them. With Saquon and Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and what's his name,
Devontae
Adams. Smith. I don't know why I want to call him Adams. But
Devontae
Smith.
Adams, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert had a grown man touchdown last week, man. Stiff arming that dude twice.
Yeah. I just don't think that the Rams have enough firepower to keep it going. I know the last time they played them, I forget what week it was, but Philadelphia beat them by like 16 points.
And quite frankly, I think AJ Brown, he hasn't really, he didn't get a chance to produce in the wild card. I think he goes off in this one.
I agree. Yep. So I'm picking the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. Perfect. Okay. All right. Keeping everything in house here. Now we get to the best game of the week. And this ideally should be the best game of the year. You got the Ravens and the Bills, least of the playoff slate.
Yeah.
Ravens at Bills, man. I have a feeling that you and I are both going to be on opposite sides with this pick here, but I don't know. Let me hear your thoughts first.
The first time that the Ravens played the Bills, the Ravens beat them 35-10. Now, I'm sitting here looking at this game. I'm going, it's a 1.5 point game. The Ravens are, 1.5 point favors. There's a 51.5 over under. I don't know who to pick, to be honest with you. I'm looking at this going, one of these two teams can beat the Kansas City Chiefs and go to the Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody says. One of these two teams is going to beat Kansas City or whoever their next. In my case, I pick Kansas City to get beat next or this week. But if Kansas City proves me wrong and says, Texans hold my beer, get the hell out of my way, and whoever's playing for the championship game, for the AFC championship game, I still believe that it's going to be either the Ravens or the Bills are the only two teams that can beat them because they have the power. But so that being said, because I am such a run the damn ball type of guy, and I don't mean the quarterback running with the damn ball. I'm talking about with Derrick King Henry running with the damn ball. I'm going to say the Ravens beat the Bills to move on in the playoffs.
Everything seems to look like it can align very properly for the Ravens to go on that magical Super Bowl run. And how the story gets told is that, hey, round one, they had to go see their arch rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, that Lamar's historically struggled against. He overcomes that. Even though everybody's talking about them dominating the Bills in week 4,
Right.
Historically, Baltimore struggles against Buffalo, believe it or not. The last time these two teams met in the playoff was just only one time. It was in 2020 in the divisional round. Buffalo just wiped the floor with them. I believe it was 17-3 was the score. And that was the narrative continued about Lamar Jackson's struggles, that how he just can't get over that hump or perform well in the playoffs for that matter. This is a different case here. This is obviously going to be the game to watch. And this is why this is the final game on the docket in terms of the divisional playoff slate.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these quarterbacks are in line to win the MVP award. They're neck and neck. And
Right.
many people thinks it's Josh Allen. Many people thinks it's Lamar. I think that you might see a co-MVP for the first time since 2003. You might be able to see that. If I had a vote for MVP, it's probably going to lean more towards Josh Allen just because I believe the whole overarching of what he had to overcome this year of what was supposed to be like this Bills team was more than Lamar Jackson. And the number of all pros really just speaks for itself. But it also can speak to the element that Lamar Jackson's value helped create those versions of all pros. But we see a lot of that on defense. However, I'm not truly buying too much stock into the week 4 matchup just because that week 4 matchup, Buffalo, that was a clear trap game for the Bills, and they just fell right into it. The Baltimore Ravens were at home. It was in prime time on Sunday Night Football. You know how those games go. Baltimore, prime time, Sunday night or Thursday night, whatever, Monday night, that place can get routed real quick. And if you start to slip up, they will snowball on you. And that's what ended up happening. Because for a good part of that game, I felt like Buffalo could have gotten into that game, which is one score, to make it like 17-20 or something like that, or 17-21. But then what happened was, as Josh Allen rolled out to his left, was going to launch a ball deep, strip sack fumble happens. Baltimore scoops it, runs back the other way, and next thing you know, the snowball effect continues, and that's how they lost that game, or just got thoroughly out dominated in that game. But I think the spread on this game is right, 1.5, favoring the Bills since they're at home. But this is literally a coin flip game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I gave a lot of credit to the Ravens as far as like why and this is not if I'm going to pick them or pick against them, I'm picking them out of spite because I really can see both of these two teams winning this game. And just
Right.
like you said, I can see either one of these two teams beating Kansas City. But if you ask me, who's the team that's rated to take down Kansas City the most in the playoffs, I think it's going to be Buffalo. That's who I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
And
It's a
if
good
I'm
pick.
wrong, I'm wrong. It is what it is. I
Yeah.
think both quarterbacks, you can make a great case of why they're probably going to win the Super Bowl here. Their teams are. But man, I just feel like that everything's really set up for the Bills here. They got this game at home. They're the one team that I feel like outside of the Bengals that do not fear going into Arrowhead, being that
Mhm.
I get it. Popular opinion tells people that they can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. But Josh Allen has 3 wins against Patrick Mahomes in two of them being, or actually 3 of them in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Even although they were regular season wins, but that speaks a lot of volume here. I'm counting regular season wins. We do it when we talk about going against the Chiefs and whatnot. So I'll count that for them. And Baltimore's only beaten the Bills that one time, and that was that week 4 game. They haven't really beaten them since.
Yeah.
Now, again, they can win this game clearly. And I think that there's a lot of advantages here. I think that Buffalo defense, I watched them those last few weeks. Derrick Henry can run on it. But I think that
Mhm.
Buffalo can run on the Baltimore Ravens defense too with James Cook. So
Yeah.
I'm leaning Buffalo towards this one. 2-point win. I'll just go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. But playoffs is all right. So we just got done wrapping up our divisional round for the playoffs. Then obviously next week we're going to dive into the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game. Because those are ideally the two big dogs of the conference. I can't wait for it, man. Again, playoffs are the best time of year. Hopefully, when we jump on the show next week, we'll be able to talk about either your team with the Notre Dame win. We'll hopefully also be able to talk about the Bengals finally selecting a defensive coordinator around this
Mhm.
time. But until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an honor and a pleasure. Although our boy Brandon Harriet is not joining us today, again, due to some personal reasons, but he'll be back. He ain't going nowhere. But we talking playoff football this time around with me and Tim. Tim, do you got any parting shots for the crowd before we leave?
No, everybody just enjoy the football this weekend. Let's go Irish. Who Dey.
And a personal hope that, you know what, if Al Golden is a guy that is going to be considered as the defensive coordinator, I wouldn't mind that either. So, I mean, hey, go Irish in that terms in that case. So I'm I'm very neutral when it comes to this college football championship game. But
Yeah.
again, it's one of those things where it's like I gotta devote my emotional equity somewhere because my Bengals are not in the playoffs and they
Yeah.
should be. as you
And
guys can see
Monday,
on the bottom of my ticker.
yeah, and Monday is going to be some good football. You know, it's Notre Dame and Ohio State playing for the national championship, and this is do or die, and whoever wins is the national championship for the year, is national champion for the year. You know, it's also
Mhm.
Martin Luther King Day, and it's
Oh yeah,
also
that's right.
and it's also President Trump being sworn into office. So Monday
Man,
is a big
Monday
day.
is
So
gonna be
Monday,
jam packed.
yeah, Monday is going to be a busy day. But I hope you guys have a blessed weekend. Enjoy some football and enjoy your family.
Awesome. Tune in next week, guys, as we are running through the jungle.